People often ask me, what's the most important thing I could do to get prepared to sell my business? Well, I don't know that there's one primary, but if I were to say one primary, it would be what's called hub and spoke. And what's meant by hub and spoke is that you want to make sure that your company is not dependent primarily upon you. What happens is if you build a business on you, then the value actually goes way down and the sellability goes way down. You think about it, people don't want to buy a business that's built upon the owner, because if it's built upon the owner, what happens is the buyer is concerned that when the owner goes away, the customers or clients are going to go away. And they don't want to buy a business like that. Sometimes what happens is if you build it too much upon you, someone will come along and say, look, I want to buy your business, but I'm not going to give you what you think it's worth. I'm going to reduce the amount that you want me to pay for it. And by the way, I need you to stick around for a year or maybe even 2 years, because I'm a little worried that, if you were to leave, then what would happen is all the clients or customers would leave with you. And so we call it a buyout. And, as an owner selling your business, you might think, well, that'd be pretty good. I could still get a salary for a year or two and all that. But you don't really want that. Think about it. Someone's going to come in and buy your business. They're going to be the new owner. Now you go from being the owner to now being an employee. And that buyer is going to come in. It's probably going to change a bunch of things. And you're thinking, why are you changing this? And why are you changing that? And maybe they're going to change some employees. So they're going to fire that guy and hire someone in their place. And you're sticking around watching all of this happen. And it's not really what you want. And it kind of just is hard for you to be able to even stomach what's going on. You don't want to set yourself up for that. Instead, what happens is this. You want to structure your business where it's not really primarily dependent upon you. You don't want to be the hub of everything. You don't want everything to have to go across your desk. You don't want to have to be responsible for everything. Now you might be thinking, well, how do I do all of that? Well, to begin with, I always encourage you to take a look at your business, and you can usually divide your business up into segments. For example, you might have marketing, sales, deliverables, financials. But the idea is structure your business so you look at it like departments, silos. And then you want to actually begin to look for people either already currently on your team or bring people to your team that can be responsible for each of those silos. And when you start hiring the right people and putting them in the right place, and these are people that have skills in that area. If it's financials, they really understand financials, not just accounting or bookkeeping, but they understand how to do projections. They really understand how to manage cash flow. I mean, there's a lot of key things in the financial areas. Same thing with deliverables. You want someone who really understands the importance of staying in contact with customers, making sure customers are happy, following up with them, and maybe even getting testimonials and things from them that you can use for marketing. Same thing for sales, same thing for marketing. The idea is that you really want people who have expertise in these different areas. And when that happens, you can begin to offload things. Now, part of offloading is making sure you have good SOPs in every department. What do I mean by SOP? Well, an SOP is a standard operating procedure. Most of the time when you own a company, a lot of the SOPs are in the head of the owner. You have a certain way that you do things. You've done it that way for years. It's just kind of who you are and you know how to do it, and you don't have it written down anywhere. And so what happens is when you have someone now in charge of the marketing or the sales or deliverables or financials or whatever department it is, they don't really have any guidelines to go by because you've not established them in writing. And that makes it hard because what happens is they're sort of just doing it the way they think it ought to be done. Now, sometimes that's all right, but it's better if you take the time to establish SOPs in all the different key responsibilities within your company. That'll do a bunch of things. One of the things it'll do is it'll make sure that everybody kind of understands what's going on and why you're doing it a certain way. It also makes it very easy to train people. When you bring new people on your team, you already have a standard operating procedure sort of fleshed out so that you have not only what you want done, but you have the way you want it done. And then you really can, from there, begin to establish some metrics. So how do you measure whether or not they're following the standard operating procedure? all of this is involved in sort of moving things away from you so that you're not, everything doesn't, doesn't come to you. A good way to tell is this. Let's say that you want to go on vacation. Can you go on vacation for 2 or maybe even 3 weeks and not have to worry about what's going on in your company? A lot of people can't do that because really everything comes to them. If there's a problem, it comes to them. If it's a sales problem, it comes to them. If it's a deliverable issue, it comes to them. If it's something in marketing, it comes to them. If it's something financial, it comes to them. Everything comes back to the owner, and what happens is you're carrying the load of the business on your back. And that works, particularly when you start out and you're developing the business, but you don't want to stay there. Because here's what will happen. If you stay there, eventually it will just begin to wear you out and deplete you. And also, in addition to wearing you out and depleting you, it creates a cap or a ceiling because everything's sort of bumping up against you and the company can't grow anymore because, frankly, you can't handle anymore. And so you become the ceiling of the company, and you actually limit the growth and keep it from moving forward. So if I were to say, okay, what's a key area? I always start looking by, okay, how dependent is the business upon the owner? If the business is primarily dependent upon the owner, you're just setting yourself up for devaluing your company and making it unattractive to buyers. You don't want to do that. Now, when you get ready to exit, there are a lot of different ways you can exit. One of the things you can do is become what's called a silent owner. In other words, you still own the company, but what's happening is you're not working in the company anymore, but you're the silent or private owner. And so for years to come, you can continue to reap the dividends of your business, but you're not necessarily involved in the day-to-day. But that doesn't happen overnight. You have to get the right people on the bus. You have to get them in the right seat. You have to train them and develop them. Make sure you have those good SOPs. Make sure you have metrics so you can know whether they're doing what you want them to do. And as you do that, what happens is you're starting to push things away from you, and you're setting up a business that can really scale and be sustained and grow without you. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And if you choose to be the silent owner, you continue to reap the dividends of all that for years to come, but you're not necessarily carrying the day-to-day load. Now, a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't structure their companies that way. It's really kind of all set up upon them. They carry the load of everything. And what happens after a while, it just kind of wears you out. You get tired. You're exhausted. You just don't want to do it anymore. So that's probably the key area. If I were to say, if there's one, and it's different for different owners, but that's probably the one that I see is the one that most people need to work and move forward on. And without that, what will happen is their company is limited in scaling. It's not very valuable. It's not very attractive to buyers, and you're just sort of limiting the future because you just haven't structured it right. I'm Dr. Dave Pennington from Penn Coaching and Consulting, and one of the things I help business owners do is understand how to structure their company so it's not dependent upon themselves. If that's something you have interest in, you can reach out to me at dave@penncoaching, PENN coaching.com. I'd be glad to kind of sit down with you, take a look at your business, help you understand how you can begin to push some things away and how you can develop a company that's not really primarily dependent upon you. You're not the hub, you're not carrying everything on your own. You actually have quality help, and you have structure and process and systems so that other people can come in and help you actually grow your company and increase the value and make it more attractive to buyers. So if you'd like to have a discussion about that, dave@penncoaching.com. I'd love to chat with you and show you how it all works.